Okay, now you're probably thinking, this is a little going a little too far with putting the paper on. And if you don't really want to put the paper on, you don't have to. One of the reasons I will put the paper on is that this paper is nicer to paint on, draw on. It kind of gives a blank palette kind of approach to pieces, so I can see a little bit better. Because if you've been following me for a long time, you know that I will go in and I will these little bits right here, I will cut, you know, pieces to go in there because I want it to be a certain way. I think that is very much my, I view how I do these things and the materials that I use are very much my grandmother Wilma, my grandmother Elizabeth. Wilma was very much a person who adhered to a pattern and neatness. I do that in my own work, whereas Elizabeth was much more experimental. What can I do with this? So I think for me, in parts of my creativity, those two are married together. I like having the blank palette because then I can allow myself to kind of imagine what else could go in here, how I want to work on something. It also distinguishes the work from a finished piece. This is just a practice piece. This is, yeah, this might be something that someday I'll paint and do something with, but for right now, this is a, does this work? Can I do this? Will this work? Yeah, that's what this piece is about. So by putting the whiteness on top of the cardboard, I'm doing two things. I'm signaling that, number one, that this is going to be a practice piece. This is a proof piece. This is a trying out stuff. Plus, it gives me a blank template. And it covers up all this acid-ridden board. And when I say acid-ridden, I mean that this is not meant to stick around for a long time. This has a shelf life. Take any pieces of cardboard and put them outside and see what happens to them in the elements. They're going to start to degrade. This kind of dresses it up a little bit and is a nicer, if I want to do pencil on top of something, if I want to glue something else on top of it, if I want to use something else to adhere to it, it works really well. And you can see when I took a piece of regular, the white paper, this is just 8.5 by 11, and I cut part of it off. I end up with a lot of these little off bits. I use those in lots of different ways. Sometimes the other side of them is just covered in off bits because I've always got little off bits. And if this is something that's going to be covered, I don't care about it. That off bit doesn't, no one's going to care about that. Other times, because I ended up with a lot of them this time that I was just not using up as quickly as I wanted to. So I just took these longer off bits, folded them in half, and laminated them together. So now I have pieces that I can use to do other smaller things with, which is nice to have around. So what I'm going to show you now is how I put these, how I glue these on, and how I measure it. You can see there's a little bit hanging out here. Don't worry about that. That's gonna just that's gonna go away. Why do I keep it? I don't know. I just do. So I'm going to show you how I cut the paper to go with this because it's a really, I cannot stress to you enough how scientific and hard this is to do. Because I'm going to pick a piece of paper and I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up, slide it over so it's even, hold it down, and draw a line. Na-na! And then, oops, throw a bunch of stuff down. And then just line it up and cut. There's an off bit. I'll probably use these off bits. I've got like 10 of these things I need to do, so I'm going to be using a lot of off bits. So now the piece of paper is going to fit. Now this is a little different than the other putting the boards together. I'm still going to use the glue, but I'm going to keep this cap on. Part of the reason for keeping the cap on here is it gets less glue out. And I had to go through, I have 2 bottles that are watered, and one of them, wow, it had really started, the white water had started to evaporate off. So I was having a heck of a time trying to get the glue out. And you can see I'm just trying to, and some people, gluing on something like this, that's enough in their mind. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. So it's a little easier to get all the way to the edges because you're off the edge. You're sitting a little higher. I work a little quicker with this because this glue dries faster on the board like this. So it's because both of them are non-highly calendared. They aren't shiny. They're still very porous. And you can see there's almost no glue coming out. Another thing I do, especially when I'm gluing, this is kind of crinkly right now. I usually have this as damp. So now you can see on this side that I've still got a little bit of paper coming off. I like to make sure that these are gone. And I'm using a nice sharp blade, and I'm going very slowly, and you can see I'm keeping everything out of the way to make sure that I don't cut myself. Because the thing is, you don't glue both sides without looking at that first side and making sure there's no overhang. And again, if you want, coming through and doing this, if you notice any little sharp bits, because everybody's gotten those paper cuts that just suck. Make sure that this is on the other end. Now let's do this again. I'm just coming in here. I try to get a little bit more around the edges, especially, I have a fan on right now, which is kind of making the drying time a little faster than normal. Because it's rather humid here today. Hopefully it's the last hurrah. And then, and yeah, believe me, when I did this, I started doing this, I did not do it as neat or as tidy as this in the beginning. Okay, drop that over there, line this up, and you don't have as much wiggle room, and it's because, okay, with the pizza boxes, it's a printed calendared surface. It's slick. The glue will float on it for just a teensy weensy bit. When this kind of paper and this kind of cardboard, when you're gluing that on, it's not going to do that. Now, I can hear you say, but Katie, why don't you just glue it? Don't do that. I did that and that was dangerous. Why don't you just glue it on the side that has the calendared side? Well, because I don't want the pizza box to show through. I don't want people to know that Friday nights, my husband and I have Pizza Friday, and we both enjoy it quite a bit, and we eat a giant salad, and we each have a giant piece of pizza, and it's one of the best days of the week because it's Pizza Friday. Okay, I double check to make sure everything's there. Wipe out any glue I see, and you can see that little end bit. I can get rid of that now. And again, I'm just gonna walk this in a tiny bit, about a centimeter. And I can't stress to you enough, keep your fingers out of the way. I watch people online who cut things without using a ruler or straight edge, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that. And you can see it's beginning to bow again a bit. And how do we deal with that? We reach under and we find a place to shove it. There are times though that I'll be working and it's like I don't realize how much I've gotten in the middle, and it's like, there are 3 pieces of board underneath here. I need to fix this. So yeah, that's how I do those things, and this can be used for a lot of different other stuff. It's always nice. I like, occasionally I can just reach into, I have a little box next to my desk workspace where I can just grab a piece of scrap paper if I need to do like math, or I need to write down something really quick about, do I want to do it this way, or reminding myself, because I have templates and things that I work with. You can see here, this is a little scrap that I was writing, and it's not a 45-degree, anyway, this is 45 degrees, but it's also a right, anyway. This is what I did for the shelves. So this reminds me of what I did. A lot of this stuff ends up taped inside my book to work with. I also create small templates, like these were for the templates. I did these on the laminated paper, so I had something I could trace if I needed to. Tracing is not going to be the best on this, but that will remind me. I can pick this up and go, is it 8.5 or 8 something? It's 8.3. It needs to be just a tiny bit smaller so it fits inside, so the 8.5 can go across the front. So yeah, that's how I'm working on all this furniture, and these practice pieces. It's not exactly rocket science. Like I said, a lot of it is stuff that I have picked up from my own, things that I use from my own childhood, things that were demonstrated to me, and my own kind of need to figure out how to do things. Because remember, I don't do crossword puzzles and Sudoku. I spend my evenings trying to figure out, how can I do that? But then I want to add something else on the side of this. Will that work? Yeah, that's me. Okay, so thank you, patrons, for sticking with me with this. And now you know how I make my board that I use for the inside of the pieces I've been making. And I have some more chair designs I want to work on. There's so much. It's the ADHD. Damn. The ADHD. Yeah. So thank you for sticking with me. And if you have any questions about anything, you can always drop me a line. And I'll see you in the next video.